Hello, and welcome back to the I'm Angry podcast. Here I'm with Mike. Next to me is Matt.
What's up?
Over there is Johnny.
Hello.
And across the table is the other Mike.
Hello.
So for, I guess we'll call it season 2, we've done a bit of a facelift to the I'm Angry podcast, and we're now the I'm Angry, Annoyed, and Amused podcast. So about the same idea, but we're going to maybe branch out a bit with some of our topics. Today, we're going to get started actually with the VP debate last night. For anybody who...
The presidential campaign overall.
campaign.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit about the debate as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's...
that works.
All right. Yeah. That's the amused part, I guess.
Politics are amusing.
Yeah.
It's all
A lot of
amusing.
fun.
It really
A lot of fun. Not fun, but it is amusing, I guess. It's kind of not fun, actually, most of the time listening to it.
It shouldn't be funny. It should
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
something that
Ideally.
people take more seriously. But apparently, what we're living in right now is a little bit more humorous, but not funny.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a weird time for, I mean, I've lived through, I guess, a good bit of campaigns now, but I haven't been, cognizant of them. I mean, for most of the time I was a kid and I wasn't into politics. Some kids are, I wasn't. But then I guess in my adult life, only since 2015, 2016, which was the first
I don't
Hillary
know.
Trump election that I paid attention to. So in my adult lifetime of elections, they've all been pretty insane.
Well, I've paid attention. I was on the periphery of politics, but since 2016, I think a lot more people have become focused on politics. That's what I think.
Always hated politics. Never watched them. Never cared. Didn't really matter. I only cared who won, but I never really cared. Now all I do is watch it.
It's hard to look away. It's like a car crash.
Did it start?
It probably did start after.
2016.
Let's just say Trump.
It became.
It was, yeah. Well,
did.
that election, I mean, it was a big...
That election was a big deal.
It was big, but also he kind of changed politics. Is where he's
Yeah.
he was
did.
amusing to watch.
He is. He's definitely amusing.
He's amusing to watch.
There's
He's
no doubt about
entertaining.
it.
Oh, I love him so much. It's funny because Leonora hates his guts so much, and we fight about it. But I'm like,
well, he's going to kick her out of the country.
exactly, let it go. Goodbye. Leave the baby.
Yeah, but American citizen.
American citizens. But yeah, I don't care. He's so entertaining.
Yeah.
That guys, my vote just for that.
Yeah, fair enough. What do you think is, if we're talking about this current election, this campaign at least, what do you think is a good jumping off point for, I guess where to start as far as...
I guess Joe
Let's start
Biden
with the- let's
refusing
start with the nominations,
The
right?
nominations, yeah.
Say
Let's
Joe
start.
Biden refusing the
Right?
nomination. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a scandal that I guess we've just blown past, and it is what it is in the political arena at this point.
It's accepted and moved on.
But
It's-
I think
it's-
that was kind of a big deal.
I think it was a big deal.
I have a few things I'm going to jump in and out. I don't know a lot of the legal stuff in politics. I don't really know legal stuff at all. So you guys can school me, please. So I'm going to jump in a lot. And I get all my news from TikTok. Sorry.
Most people do.
That's the place to start.
And unfortunately, you don't know if it's real, if it's
problem.
fake, if it's gimmicked or
I
Well,
whatever.
everything-
heard you
thing
say, when you
anyway.
said you love Trump, they're not surprised that you just said you
Yeah.
got everything from
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have it filtered, so
Makes sense.
it's
That's
only
fine.
Trump stuff.
Of course.
I don't want to see it. So whenever you guys talk, I'm going to dive in with my questions. But the first thing that I have a question was where you guys are going is the whole thing where, and please explain this again, politically naive person I am.
You don't have to keep prefacing it. You got
No, I do.
Yeah.
I want if you tune in a half hour, and I don't want you to
the
think
half hour in will be over.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Unless you keep saying it over and over again.
But so wait, explain to me the whole thing where she wasn't voted in by the people, and that's a big wrong thing.
Joe Biden dropped out after the
Right.
the
That part I knew.
the nomination
Like
was
that, I
given.
understood
So-
all that.
So Kamala's nomination came from the Democratic
delegates.
committee and not the actual votes of Democrats.
Yeah, so pretty
they-
much...
they basically took Joe Biden's delegates
Yeah,
and assigned them to
So was that legal?
Kamala.
It's that's part of the, I think the contentiousness of it is I don't know. I don't think it's technically illegal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't
What
think
happened
it was
because
there would have been all
well,
kinds
well,
of-
because
That's what I'm
the
wondering.
specification I
There would've
think
been all kinds
that
of
they
lawsuits and
made, the reason why they're saying it's not illegal, it's completely fair, justly done nomination, is because technically when you vote in a primary, the same way, it's not the same thing, but it's sort of similar to an electoral college,
Right.
where when you vote, you're really your vote doesn't actually count.
Right.
You're voting for a delegate, so to speak, and then that delegate they choose.
Yeah.
Right? So in this election, everybody, it was, I mean, he said he was running up until the day he wasn't.
Right.
Biden said, I'm running. And generally speaking, the incumbent gets to keep their delegates.
Mm-hmm.
They, typically they don't, I don't think they even do a primary when there's an incumbent, typically
Right,
speaking. Maybe they
right.
have in the past. I don't know. I don't think so. That they would even have a primary at all. It's just assumed they're in office. If everybody's happy with them and they're not leaving. So then Biden pulled out really late, I think mostly because of the really, really bad debate he had,
Mm-hmm.
that they were like, he can't do. I mean, they limped him through the last election. He's been pretty much
Moron.
well, yeah, that, but also, I mean, I think he's clearly had, mental, he's fallen off
But this is
He's
a,
got
a long
but-
time
but-
ago.
But this is the whole problem.
He's got Alzheimer's.
This is the whole problem of where politics has gone, right? It's a game of winning now.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
Right?
I think that's where it came from.
For as long as they thought
Mhm.
Biden had a chance, everything was okay. Everybody was cool with Biden, and then they saw that disaster.
Yeah, they were like, he can't win this.
And even though people might have known he was declining or whatever, they didn't care. If he could win, he
That's
would
all
win.
that
True,
matters.
that's true.
Once they saw that happen, they said, okay, we got to find somebody else who can win. Doesn't
Why
matter who it
her?
is.
I don't even think it
Does
was.
you could talk about qualifications all you want, and people could argue both sides of, who's qualified to do what. But qualifications aside, they just want somebody who wins. It's more of a popularity contest. There's let's just say there's 48% of the country and another 48% of the country that vote left or right, regardless.
I was going
You
to
know,
say it doesn't
And
matter.
there's
They only
4%
compete
of the country
over-
left over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over swing. Yeah.
Really,
that's who they're
I mean,
competing
a
over
couple
is
thousand
those
votes.
swing
I was going to
votes,
say
right?
that's a real good point you say because the amount of times, like again, TikTok, you watch and no matter who it is, like if you're a Trump supporter or red or you're a blue supporter, no matter how bad that person is and the person you follow, you like, oh, they were great, they were amazing. It's
Yeah.
like
Well,
I'm
because
like,
everything is statistical, right? And they
Yeah.
bend the statistics in their favor. You could watch
Right.
news all day long, and you'll go up and down because somebody will say something, and it's oh wow, that sounds great, and then somebody will say something else, same statistics supposedly, but spun in a different way.
Yeah, they draw a
Mhm.
different
Right.
conclusion.
So,
or-
so
Right.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's right, what's wrong anymore. Part of that, I think we talked about this previously, is the media is a problem.
I think they're
Media
the biggest. I
sucks.
mean,
in as they've taken sides, and now
100%.
you don't get, true facts anymore, and
Yeah.
it's hard to find facts, right?
Mhm.
There's people out there that are going to argue that, like, oh, you can find no.
it's
things
hard
things
to
get
it's
better.
hard to find
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
It is.
I-
no, it is.
I don't own a gun. Like, I'm from New York. It was never really like a normal thing for people to have or anything. But I'm, idealistically, I guess, like pro gun, right? So when all the, school shootings are like a big topic that comes up every once in a while, unfortunately, and always around that's gun control. And then recently, I want to say in the last year, they came at some report comes out that says, and this is like to the media and statistics, just pretty much lying. I think these people aren't stupid.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not accidentally putting this narrative forward. But so there's a study that says that the primary cause of death for children in America is guns, right? And you can look I'm sure every media source, maybe even Fox, they've probably all said, they have said this, like definitely
That can't be
the
true.
left leaning ones. Well, I looked into because I was like, okay, I keep hearing this. They can't just be saying that.
Right.
So there is a study, right? I look it up. I try to read the study. It's it's like a dense thing. I get into the actual crime reports, and I'm like, okay, well, then when they say, and mind you, the title or the top of the study says children, but they count through 18-year-olds.
Right.
So I look, and I'm parsing out the actual data by age, and I'm like, okay, 96% of this is 16 to 18
Right.
in
And
in mass
gang-related.
shootings. I'm like, it's gang
gang-related.
related shootings.
And then they
I'm like, if
use
you take that out, if you take
statistic-
out that
right.
age,
They-
just 16 to 18, yeah, it's car crashes
I was
and
going to say.
and like normal infant
And
mortality things.
illnesses.
But to call it children, and they're like, well, they are. 18's a kid. I'm like, it's a kid, but when you
Yeah.
go on the news after a school shooting, and you say that the leading cause of death for children, you're being dishonest, and you know that. You
that's-
know what you're like. That's what annoys me because they're not
Well, that's what it
stupid.
is. So
I mean, some
somebody-
of them are, but they're not all stupid.
Somebody sent me, an article from what is supposed to be a reputable news organization, right? That's worldwide, and it basically stated that in the last 20 years, almost all of the mass shootings were from right wing activists, blah blah blah. So I looked it up, I had to dig. It took me days.
It's hard.
It took me
It's
days.
hard to do.
I had to dig, but it turned out it wasn't true. They omitted anything that had anything to do with somebody who was like a left leaning person who's what do they call those things when that they leave behind? Their
Fingerprints?
No, the
Gunpowder
thing,
residue?
Manifesto?
their manifestos. So it just omitted.
that?
It basically omitted some of the facts.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And it used that article to say, look, all these shootings come from right wing people, and it was like so ridiculous. It's like I said, it's just like the news organizations are the biggest problem that we have.
I think they're
as
worse
it
than.
relates to this stuff.
I don't like
And you can
politicians.
see what they did in debate, in both debates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Really.
gonna say,
The
bring it
fact
back
checking.
to-
The
it's
fact checking
horrible.
in the debates, Vance called him out on it a little
That
bit
was
last night.
beautiful.
Yeah, but then they shut him down too.
Yeah, they
you know,
did.
Cut his mic.
They kind of let him answer to
Eh.
a point, but then they really dismissed him with the, well, thanks for giving us the laws.
Yeah.
But he was giving them facts that were, important to that topic, and they weren't supposed to be fact checking. They shouldn't have fact checked the first time either. But if you're gonna fact check both sides.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the
No.
problem is, I think, is that we've lost sight, like as a country, I guess, or definitely the media, when they I don't, and this might actually be that they're not stupid or lying, but they're so far down this path that they can't decipher like what is the truth, because sometimes it can be true that you look at a thing and two people see something differently without lying, without. But so
That'd be
that I think is a lot of, and historically that was the political divide, was we want the same thing, but we have different ideas of how to get there, right? But now we're at a stage where after a school shooting, not every single person on the left does not say this at all, but there are people, like I think a good bit, who they say that the right wants kids to die.
Right.
They're like, you don't want gun control, you like it
you're
when
okay
schools
with
get shot up. NRA members want children to die. And I'm like, if you believe that, we're done.
Right.
We can't roll that back. How are we in
But
4 years?
because-
Trump's gone and you get to go,
because
nah,
it's-
I was kidding about all that. You didn't want kids to
Because
die.
it's
It was
all
just we had to
about-
win.
It's all about dividing the people between left and right.
Yeah.
So that they could keep their power, right? Because again, and we talked about this too in a previous one, right? They have power and they make money, right? And that's not what politicians were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
They should not be leaving politics millionaires,
Oh my God.
billionaires.
No way.
They should not be trading stocks
Supposed
on
to be
things that they're
public
voting
servants.
on.
That was the whole-
Exactly.
Isn't so? I
You
just
know.
heard somewhere someone told me that some of the people in politics are rated like the top 5 traders in the world.
Yeah.
Pelosi.
Pelosi.
Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi's
She
husband,
got
not
a
her
lot of slack
technically.
for it.
Right.
Her husband, I want to say, the number is going to be completely wrong, but top of my head, he's beaten the market by like 40% for like
That's
10 years in a
insane.
row,
Yeah.
which is not
That's
only
insane.
incredible, it's almost literally impossible.
Right.
Like you can't say it's impossible because he could just be the luckiest person ever. But the
Yeah.
odds of doing that,
Yeah.
like he might as well have won the lottery every like 6 months for the last 10 years. Like that's the same odd. Like it's insane. Nobody thinks you can do that. Not a single person
I was going
is
to say,
in finance.
what did Buffett think about it?
No, it's impossible. He doesn't do that.
Exactly.
No, the best you can hope for is like 12%. Is like beating the market a tiny bit on a year,
Yeah.
or like even in a quarter, like to really
He's
outpace.
been doing it
He's been doing it consistently by
40%.
leaps and bounds for years. And then, but what's crazier is you can find specific deals that
Right.
happen right before. Like I just saw one
Right
yesterday.
before a vote. They just
And
had
again,
one
I'm gonna.
recently.
No, not even. There was one from years ago. I just saw an old clip on, and again, I'm gonna mix up the actual specifics, so you'd have to try to look this up. I'll maybe find it out later and double back on the next episode. But so pretty much there was I want to say it was a credit card. It was when Visa went Visa's IPO in like 08 or 09, and there was legislation going through Congress that had to do with, I think, credit card rates, something about credit cards, right? And like the day before, Nancy Pelosi's husband buys 5,000 shares like of the IPO at like $30. The next day it goes up to like 66, right? So already made, I mean, 15,000 like in a
Double
day,
Double his
money.
money.
double, yeah, easily, right? And then that next week, the credit card, the thing that was going through thing gets shot down. Visa jumps up again. I'm like, you don't think she knew that?
Right.
Right.
You don't think at all
Yeah, I never
that she knew
understood-
what was going on with
should
that
be-
bill?
I never understood there
So
wasn't
illegal.
more restrictions on
would
that.
like to
on
Go back, not today, but go back to see what happened with his the break-in at his house.
Well, nothing. I mean, probably not. I think that guy was a crazy guy. I don't think that had anything to do.
You just don't trust anything anymore, right? Because everything that
That
happens,
is true. It's hard to.
everything that happens gets swept away. You don't hear about it,
Yeah.
And everything is some kind of rumor, and then they say it's a conspiracy,
Yeah.
and then when the conspiracy's true, then it becomes something else.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
hard to
nuts.
believe anything. I know.
It really
It's
is.
all.
I mean, I
everything's
saw-
lies. It's so frustrating.
And you know what's really messed up now with AI and all these bot forums and stuff is like I can't even tell when I'm now like on Instagram or like Twitter or whatever who's a real
You
person. Like
know
I
if
don't
it's
know.
real
I
or
don't
not,
know
you know.
because I want to sometimes say like, okay, at least one person out there has this belief. But now I can't even say that. Right? Like my point being, I was just in the car earlier. I was on X, I think, which is like a cesspool. You know, like
Yeah.
it's the worst. So
It's
like
awful.
I'm like, I'm sure, and there's troll between the trolls, bots. I'm like, I don't know what these people, if they mean it, if it's a joke, whatever, right? But I saw this post that said the 3 worst days in American history. It was Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and then January 6th. And so my first thing is I was like, that's kind of crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
No, but
both
you know what,
Pearl
like,
Harbor
but-
and
okay, but
and
Mike,
9/11,
But here's the problem.
people died.
But here's the
Like
problem.
actual American citizens died.
people believe that on January 6th, people died as a result of that,
Right.
right? Because they never got the real story.
True.
Right? The one person that was actually killed,
Ashley Babbitt.
and you could argue that the heart attacks and stuff,
But she was
you
on
know,
the bad side
may,
anyway.
may not have happened, right? But she's the only one that
Yeah,
died
that day.
You know, that was killed
Mhm.
on that day, really, right? And again, you could argue that the stress of the day caused somebody to have a heart attack. If you want to argue that that person was probably going to have a heart attack anyway at some point. No, it's true. I mean, it's factually true. But they still, and what kills you is that they're allowed to come on and continually say that.
Yeah.
Right. Not only that, but they're both sides are allowed to come up and say lies, and no one ever straightens out the lies.
Thank you
Right?
for that. Because every time I watch the debate and what I hear, I'm always like, "That's not true." You know, and you know. How come they don't even call each other out? on
Well,
that?
Walls
Which is weird.
finally didn't say people died. He said 140 cops, which I don't think is true. He said 140 cops were assaulted and a couple died later on. And I would say to that, well, they're all gonna, right? Like just say they all died. Just
Right.
not yet. Every single cop that was at the Capitol, they're all gonna die.
Right.
Right.
So just say
That's
every
not a,
cop
that's not a
died.
lie. Like how
Right,
can you say
right.
and some of them died later on of like unrelated 3 of them killed themselves.
Right.
One of them had a heart attack, one of them had a stroke.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
how
I
you
know.
can tie
Like,
that? You
but
can
this
now
is what
blame
I'm
a
saying.
heart attack
This is
on an
where-
event that happened days ago,
This is
months
where
ago.
the media doesn't check anything anymore, right?
Well, no, they're
Because
they're the perpetrators. They're not checking anything.
I know,
They agree
they're,
with
They're
it.
supposed to be the ones that are checking it. We don't have that anymore.
That doesn't exist.
So then you don't know, like like when you look at how many people believe the lies, again, regardless of which side it's coming from, right? Without doing any research, and they just go with that, right? It's a problem. It's a huge problem, and that's why we have such a divide in the country, right? And I say when you get down on the line level, we're not that divided.
I agree with
I
that.
agree.
Right.
We all
Person to
want- you know,
person.
I've
We
always
all
felt
want
We're
the
not.
same
Yeah.
stuff.
We're
really.
not, but somehow
Yeah,
it's,
there are
it-
people,
it's
but
ingrained
Yeah.
in us
it's
that
not.
you know, I have to vote left or I have to vote right. I'm not going to pay attention anymore to what the issues are, whether or not the issues are bad. Listen, again, who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's true anymore. But if you look up the financials, right, in the last 8 years, right, the country was not suffering. Put the COVID aside for a minute, right? The country was not suffering under Trump. It wasn't. There was more money in people's pockets. Things were going okay. If you think things are going okay now, that's fine. But you can't say it wasn't going good when he was president. You know what I mean?
I mean, like, okay,
if
financially,
you like the way
yeah.
things are going now, right?
Yeah, but that is also, you have to be, that is, you can look at the total scope of something and say, like, based on these metrics, the economy was better, right? And then the left has every right, and truthfully so, to say, well, the stock market's at the highest it's ever been. This is this, this is this, right?
But
So,
but
and
let
if
me
nobody's
just-
lying, if
just on
nobody's
that
lying,
point,
but
Mike,
there are
But those
different
are
metrics.
things
the
that
stock
normally
market
go
is
up.
higher.
I know.
But if you look at the
I-
percentage gain, it's
Right.
it's much different.
I know,
under
I know.
Trump versus now.
I'm just saying that you can't even really use metrics because they're all built into this lie. They're
Well-
all things, they're all tools that are used to
But
tell
that-
somebody
No, I-
about.
because
like-
there's no facts coming out.
No,
right?
but some of that,
Well,
the
but it's not,
metrics.
I'm saying it's not that it's not a fact, right?
Yeah,
The stock
I
market
think
No, no,
I
no.
is at the highest.
yes, right. But-
You're
but-
now going to use a secondary statistic. I'm not disagreeing
But
with
the
you.
secondary statistic is important, right? The percent
But
gain.
he's
You're not
saying-
getting it.
he's
You're not
saying-
getting
he's
it.
No,
saying
I-
they're all
know.
important, but it depends on what you're looking for. So some people
Person
are
to
gonna look at
person,
one
you
which
can
is-
thing.
which
say
is what
that
I'm
you
saying
were
is-
doing better 4 years ago, and
Pre-
that is a fact for
present
you.
people all the facts, right? Present people the facts.
I
Don't
yeah.
present
Yeah,
one
I-
side of the facts.
Yeah.
If you're
I
going to
get
say
that.
the stock market is the highest it's ever been, including that, there was X percent amount gain in these 4 years versus these 4 years, right? Because that's the metric that matters, right? You could use any number you want to make anything up. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time with
Would you-
statistics.
Yeah.
What
And
about
it's
go
hard
ahead.
to tie it's hard to tie economic value to administrations anyway, considering like things slow like
I
there's a
had-
slow effect of things a lot of the time, and so like even
Yeah,
so
but then Matt, then
even when you get to a metric where even if when you get to a point of saying all the metrics to say like this started when this person became president and ended
Right,
when
it takes
stopped.
time for it to
It,
happen.
No,
like
but it-
not there
but-
are certain things that are fast acting, but a lot of things also to happen over time. So to give all of that information,
But
you have
that's
to give
also-
a 15-year scope.
But that's also a story you're being told,
Right.
right?
I-
Because there are certain things they could come in and take care of right away.
no, yeah,
right?
no,
And
definitely.
But
it
here's
does
my
impact
thing.
things right
Going
away.
back on the whole metrics thing is, again, when you go back to Trump, the whole Biden Harris campaign is about how there's been more jobs under them. They're taking like what was COVID and using those change of
yeah,
numbers.
COVID is
Yeah,
a
the-
mess.
And
Get
like
back
and that
jobs.
shouldn't be allowed to
I
be
agree
a
with that.
metric.
That
I
shouldn't
agree
be
with that.
allowed
Like,
to be used.
and it's the
It should-
same
but
thing.
no one says that.
It's-
Like
yeah,
I have one. No one's
it's-
going. Yeah, but it was
It
COVID.
is so
like,
difficult. It's so difficult because.
but you can't say
you're
that.
gonna
Like
say- I know,
half
that's
the
what I'm saying.
country
It's
was
so
out of work.
difficult
You
I'd
know?
agree. I'd
you're
agree.
gonna-
They do that for jobs. They do that with everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
It's
Everything.
very difficult.
Houses, everything.
It's very difficult because it goes both ways, right? They're saying
No.
that they're saying they have all of this like the highest whatever because of COVID, and then at the same time people say like oh the economy was really bad under Biden, but it was also because of COVID, and so like COVID is such a it's such a thing that like
No, but nobody's
hit
blaming.
at such a bad
Nobody's
time.
blaming the economy on
I-
COVID
yeah.
with Biden.
And
What they're
so-
blaming
no,
it
they
on,
are.
they're
That's not.
blaming
That
it
is
on-
I'm blaming the
absolutely
last
They're
3
bla-
years.
no,
That's,
they're
that's that's categorically untrue.
No,
That
No,
is
it's
com-
not.
yeah.
because they're saying that
They
the economy's
absolutely are.
good, Matt. The
No,
only reason
they're
I'll,
saying
the
the
only reason I'll
economy's
disagree with
good.
you is because Biden will
They're
get up
saying
there
this
and say the
year-
This
economy is
economy is
strong.
now. This year
Yeah.
now.
So if it's working,
but in I'm
then
saying
then it's working, but it isn't.
and
No, it's the
what's it called?
spending. The spending that recently they admitted was not a inflation reduction plan, right? But a green energy plan
No, I
that they
understand.
put out.
I'm
and
saying
it's the spending that caused the inflation,
now
right?
in
Because the numbers coming in
2024
were good,
well, it
even
was
with
also
COVID.
it was also the printing the money that caused the
Even
inflation. But,
even with COVID,
even
the
the
numbers
now in
coming in were good.
2024, but in like in 2021, 2022, there was definitely a lot of blame going towards Biden, saying that the economy was so terrible, as if
Yeah,
it
well-
was.
Yeah, he
it
tanked
Well,
the
I
economy
personally-
with
I
the
think-
spending bill.
He didn't
That's
tank,
what-
but
Well,
he didn't,
look,
he
they
didn't
tanked
directly
it.
like.
economy with the spending
But
bill.
COVID also tanked the economy. Like you can't.
Yeah, but
say,
COVID, but everybody acts like COVID, like, okay, it was a thing we all went through, right? But also people handled it differently. And by people, I mean governments.
I
and-
personally
and
spent a lot more on
localities.
COVID.
Closing down the country was not the right move.
Right.
It-
was a
maybe it's my,
mistake.
call it my
It was a
opinion,
mistake.
That is
whatever.
opinion, yeah.
But then
Like,
again, why
but,
is
so
Trump,
that
Trump
didn't help
gets
the
all that-
economy, and that wasn't him.
Trump gets blamed for that too. I don't think he had a say in that.
For what?
Every shutting
COVID?
down the country. But
Well,
every,
they say he didn't now, even though
Right, but
the
every
first thing he
country
did
shut
was say
down.
we're banning any travel from China, and he
Yeah.
was a racist for that.
Right.
Right.
And then Nancy Pelosi goes down to Chinatown and says, "Come on
Come
out,
on in, everything's
it's
fine.
beautiful down here.
But
There's
didn't
no
every
COVID."
country
And
shut
then
down?
now they're saying you didn't work
There
fast
were
enough.
a
No.
lot of countries.
No,
shut
Really?
most of them
down.
didn't. No.
There were a lot of countries shut down. It wasn't almost none were for the same amount of time that we were. But the thing that I said this at the time.
But we're
too,
such
I
a
said
large
this in
country. And
2020.
Yeah.
diverse. It is hard to
I
say.
said this in 2020. The thing with COVID that
And bring it
people I
back.
feel like forget is COVID is a similar thing to terrorism 20 years ago, where as much as they should have been, nobody had a plan, and so their first instinct, mostly like everybody's first instinct was, okay, there's this sickness that's spreading and killing people. Okay, nobody have contact with anyone anymore.
Yeah, but I think
then
so,
we'll
Matt,
retroactively
this is the problem,
figure it out and open up over time, and that didn't happen. They didn't do it fast enough.
This is my biggest problem with A, government, B, more specifically, I think currently I'm more conservative for sure, the like Democrat thing, where they go, we don't know what's going on, let's take away everybody's freedom
Yeah.
until we can figure out how to help these
Yeah,
people.
that's what
That's not what I want
think
out of the
happened.
government. Stay out of my way.
I agree. That's exactly what I
you're
think
not. It's not
happened.
your job to help me. I'm not like, like it annoyed me yesterday. I know we really haven't even talked about it a lot, but with the VP debate, right? That I got the general idea. I understand the idea of wanting to help people, but I don't want the government to look at me as like this person needs my help. No, I pay you.
Yeah, that is a.
You work for me.
They forgot.
I don't
that.
need
And
your
this-
this
help.
is what I'm saying.
in that
They
case-
forgot
I
that.
don't need your
In
help.
that
Like,
case, you're 100% correct in stating that
It's
that
all
about close
their
it.
power.
it is a more liberal government that does that because that's the goal of liberalism.
Our money
Right,
is supposed
exactly.
to be given
That
to
is
them to
like,
give
of
back
course
to
you're
us.
going to feel of
Right.
course
And
you're
they
going
don't
to
do
feel
that.
that way because that's
I mean,
For
that
sure,
is-
and I'm saying I'm
that is
admitting,
your
I'm admitting my
ideology.
bias
That
in
is
that, but
your-
that's what it seems
your
like that they go.
ideology.
We don't know what's going on. The
Right.
best way for us to handle this is we have to take control because we're the big government,
Right.
and everybody is going to be under our thumb, and then we'll allow them out
They
as
need-
we see fit.
Right, but
That's
they,
what
and
they
that's
need us
insane
to
they're
do.
open about that. That
But
is what they
you-
want to do.
The
I mean,
fact that the government can tell me to stay in my house
Right.
is asinine. That should never happen in America, ever, anywhere. You shouldn't be able to tell me to stay in my
Because
house.
it's
If you want to
power, Mike.
recommend,
Because every time
if you
they
want to say
take-
this bombing's going
every
on,
time they
we
take
recommend
a
you
little
stay in
bit
your
of-
house.
Every
Okay,
time they take a little bit of freedom away from
Mhm.
you,
they don't give
right?
it back.
they don't give it.
They don't
back.
give it back.
In
9/11.
some way, you're
9/11. They
9/11
shoehorned
was
in
the
the
worst,
Patriot
yeah.
Act,
Exactly.
and now everything we just get spied on,
That
and
was-
we just have to
that was
accept
the
have to
it.
most-
accept
yeah,
that.
That was the most.
Yeah.
And that's
like,
that's
I-
crazy.
That was-
I'm
they took
okay if the government
insane
wants to tell me to
advantage
stay
of
in the
that.
house for another 3 years. I'm just saying.
But you can't
But they
choose
didn't.
that.
But they
Lock-
didn't.
lock
they,
me up.
You
Stay,
can choose
stay
to
inside.
stay.
is
No,
a
they
little
they
unfair.
had
That's true.
Stay
Okay.
inside.
they
Yeah,
had
it's a
cop
little
they had
unfair.
cops going around harassing people for being outside.
No,
That happened.
I agree, and that's
No,
and,
I know.
And to have the
It wasn't a recommendation.
A
Wolf did
discussion
that.
about
It was not a recommendation
did
to
that.
do any of
discussion
these
about
things.
a discussion
Wolf.
about police department actions is completely different, and because they have very questionable ways of quote unquote stopping crime.
But it's all.
But it's not. But it's
I'm
not even a
just saying-
crime.
I'm
It's
just saying,
all
of not
because
even just stopping
we
crime,
are
but
being
of
lied to at
whatever.
every level.
Our
Yeah.
politicians
yeah.
Right,
suck.
to keep us divided and to take our freedoms away slowly.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
That's what it's all about.
I agree. And like for one thing,
Good.
and I'm actually this is one thing where I do differ definitely from like the general conservative Republican stance. I think, although I'm kind of fine with it being a states' right issue, but like I'm pro-abortion in the sense, not pro-abort,
Pro-choice.
whatever. It's pro-abortion. I mean, why can't they say that? That's such a weird thing to me too.
Because
If you're
not-
for abortion, because it sounds bad.
yeah, you're
because
not
you have
for
to
abortion,
right, but because you have to accept the fact that you're okay with abortion,
yeah.
which they are. So say it, whatever. I am pro-abortion in the sense that I think, like, obviously, super late term is bad, like last, obviously. But I think everybody. I
Well,
don't think anybody's
according
having.
to
Nobody's
vice
really
president,
That's
they
what I'm
don't
saying.
do
I don't think
that.
anybody's really doing
Nobody's
that. Well,
on the other side of that issue.
like,
no
yeah,
one.
I
no
just
one
mean- I just
fighting
mean-
The
for-
vice president says they don't do that. So,
They don't.
I just
There's
mean I'm-
nobody fighting
I'm
for
okay.
ninth month.
but there are
abortion.
places
Right.
that do that.
No, there isn't.
There are.
There are.
There
Look,
isn't.
Matt,
There are.
Matt, there are.
Matt,
but
there
In
are.
life saving
I-
circumstances, maybe, but
No.
No, they're
No,
doing
no.
it.
I looked it up. There was 7 in 2023. There was 7 examples in Minnesota that
Wow.
Tim Walz said
Someone
didn't
did his
happen.
homework.
I was
Did.
looking this up after the last
Research.
debate because I was curious about remember the West Virginia governor or Virginia whatever that was
The whole
Northam the whole conversation whatever. I looked it up because I was like that's so crazy. I know he had said that. Trump mentioned it. They say no, you're a crazy psycho. That was never said. I'm like I've seen that clip. I know he said that. I wonder what he was talking about
yeah.
and the context of it. In particular, I looked up Tim Walz because I know he apparently in Minnesota that is like the premier state for abortions, I guess. So I looked it up. From what I can tell, the statute is correct that if a baby survives abortion, they do not need to be cared for.
Mhm.
So because the
Wait,
baby
what?
late term abortions, the baby can survive.
Okay.
If they survive, this law in Minnesota states that the doctor is not under I can't think of the word, but obligation to
to care
provide
for that
care for the
baby.
baby. They can let it die. A newborn
What?
baby
And how long did
is
it take
gonna
you,
die
How long did
naturally.
it take you to find that?
And I had to
information?
read through a report that was 900 pages long. Like I was skimming. I didn't like
Yeah,
read the
it's-
whole
it's
900 thing.
ridiculous.
But I was like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
command. I was like,
The point
command
is-
F.
right,
You know.
So I mean,
No. But sorry. Can I just finish?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
was about a different thing. I'm just saying. Generally, I am pro-choice in the sense of I think like it's really not my call. I know that if I was 17 and I got a girl pregnant, I wouldn't try to convince her to do it. But I'd be very relieved if she got an abortion. So I'm not going to tell people not to do
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
As bad as I think the act is, it's not my thing, right? But for anybody to be, I'm the most pro-choice person, and then say, but I do think you should have to get a vaccine. I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
I don't understand how there's a
do you
difference
square
there.
Those two things?
How do you square that?
Right? How do you, it's still my body, my choice.
How do you square that? But then they
it's
go,
like- it's
they go,
like-
well, no, it's not your body or choice because you getting sick
You're
is going to
affecting
affect me. I'm
somebody
like, I thought you took the vaccine.
right.
Aren't you going to be healthy?
You're
Yeah.
safe. You-
You're
what are you
safe.
worried about me for?
I could die,
I-
sure, but I'll
Exactly.
accept that risk.
And-
but they're
and-
like, no, you have to get it too. That's crazy.
There's a
To be
lot
That's
fair,
of,
crazy.
To be fair, and this disclaimer is
Hypocrisy.
necessary because people
No, there's
people do like to forget it. Nobody was forced.
You were forced by jobs.
You were
Yeah.
forced
Yeah.
by job.
Okay, you're
People
gonna
lost
say
their
you had a
job, man.
choice.
Right.
People
You
lost
had-
their
you could be
jobs. They
destitute.
didn't get the
No,
shot.
he's right. You
But
had
you'd
a
be destitute.
choice.
Right, but
But
you're
your choice is
but-
you lose your job.
But personally, for me, I fully 100% believe in the separation of government and private entities completely.
Yeah, but that's
So-
not what happens.
So
If
Matt,
you
you
were-
think
now,
that
if
you
you were
think that
working
these private
for-
entities were doing that of their own
Yeah,
volition?
no.
I don't
These
know.
businesses wanted
I-
to fire
I
half their.
don't
No,
know.
come on, dude.
I don't know, and I don't care. But I'm just saying that to sit here and say that the government forced you because your job forced you is not
Yeah, I
aligned
think
with
the
with
federal
way
government.
that it works.
Matt,
You weren't allowed
federal
to do
jobs,
anything.
I don't have a federal job.
No, I don't.
Federal jobs
that I-
had that mandate.
that I-
Exactly.
Federal
I don't
That's
know.
forcing.
I don't know.
Fine, if you want to
I'm not
separate
sure.
my company and say that
But
my
I'm just
my
saying,
boss
yeah, yeah.
was
I'm
trying
saying-
to take
I'm saying
control, fine.
nobody sitting at this table was forced to get a vaccine.
I was.
No, not a single one.
I was
Right,
forced.
but that's
You
but
absolutely were
people
not.
were forced.
Was
Why are you
forced.
saying they weren't?
I don't.
You
I,
used-
because
People were
you used
forced.
other
There were
reasons to
federal
force you.
mandates
Because I feel like
that
to
said you
force-
had to get the shot.
No,
or you lose
Matt,
your
but they
job.
found a
but then-
clever way
but
to
then you
force
lose
you.
A job like that. To say forced is pretending as if America is not at will employment. It's pretending as
Yeah,
if you.
Matt,
See, Matt, this is
you
this is a
absolutely
stretching
need-
of
like, you know what I
like
mean?
a topic to bend it in your direction. People had careers,
Yeah.
right? It's the only thing they did their whole lives. If they didn't get the shot, they lost that career.
Right.
Right?
Or what about
That,
even
understand
that is
that.
being forced into a decision that you
100%.
shouldn't have.
And then
It's
you
being-
couldn't get
it's
other
being
jobs 'cause you
coerced,
weren't-
and I'm not
'cause
gonna
you never
sit-
vaccinated.
I'm
You
not
never
going to sit here and
vaccinated.
say the coercion. I said it's a disclaimer. I'm not going to sit here and say being coerced.
Okay, yeah, under
It's
threat
very-
of
I'm
like
just
I wasn't
saying-
gonna get shot in the head if I didn't get the vaccine.
Right.
I'm
Fine.
saying right. You weren't
Fine.
going to be extradited by the country. You were
You couldn't- you-
coerced for sure.
You couldn't take part in polite society.
And maybe
You couldn't.
you could say there was pressure from the federal government. I don't know. You can also say there were.
You weren't allowed
definitely-
into
There were definitely
restaurants, bars, unless you showed
but
it?
there were definitely restaurants that they themselves with no. I'm sure like
But
some
those-
Fine.
small.
But
mom-
those were rules that
like-
were put in place by the
Government.
governments,
I-
the local governments,
legislature,
the
yeah.
state governments,
I
the
understand
federal
what you're saying.
governments. So if that was what they were enforcing, right?
You had to
I-
update it
then
on
you
the New
were-
York
you
State
were
thing.
Like I
forced to
said,
do that. I
just
had to
more
walk
of a
around with that
disclaimer.
stupid card.
You
Yeah.
can't say that the like in the same manner of abortion where it is just completely not allowed to happen. You can't say that was the same thing with vaccines. It just wasn't.
Yeah, it
it was
was.
different. Now, were you coerced?
How is it
In a
different?
lot of
That's the
How
same.
is it different?
Because
Matt,
it's
I'm not
in law.
comparing Matt.
You
What
know
I'm
what I
trying to
mean?
compare is the people who are I'm the most pro-choice person.
Yeah, yeah.
That person I could almost guarantee you without knowing one of them in particular or saying one person that I know, 100% they're for the vaccine.
they were walking
There's not a
around with the I
person.
got
There's
vaccinated
not a person
stickers,
who's like.
for sure.
And Matt, my point being that they're saying it's a medical decision, abortion in this
Right, right.
example. It's a medical decision between me and my doctor. I should make that choice, right? That is ultimately my choice. And then they'll go, but you should have been forced to have, even if they didn't. Matt, if you don't think that at least 30% of the population wanted people to be forced, like if you think that somebody,
I'm not going to say percentage.
fine,
I do know.
I'm talking
believe-
about
I
the
agree,
people,
yes,
the
there were
people who are
people-
saying I'm pro-choice.
I agree. There were people. I was just again just as a disclaimer, just that there was never a point in which you were forced. And I personally.
Matt, why do you keep saying
I
that?
I don't know.
personally
I don't
You
know.
believe-
can't keep saying that
Because it's the
not true.
truth.
There was
It is-
state,
Isn't
local,
coercion
city
force?
governments, federal
look,
government
because-
made mandates that said
because
if you don't
there's
have the shot,
there's a difference
you
in
can't work. If you
restricting
don't have the shot, you
freedom.
can't go
I mean,
into a
Matt,
restaurant.
Matt, if
That is a restriction
if
of
I,
freedom.
somebody,
it's a restriction of freedom, but it's not a.
Matt,
it's not
Matt.
a restriction
from
of
law.
freedom.
Like
Stop,
you still,
drop it. It's a restriction of
No,
freedom.
because you could not get vaccinated. That was an option.
Matt.
You had the option to not get vaccinated. Now, the repercussions
Yeah,
of
Matt,
that.
I was
that
with my
came
job
from it,
36 years. They said if you don't get a shot, you're going to lose your job.
I
Now,
get it.
Granted, I
I-
lost my job a year later, but that's not the point.
I get.
Right?
I,
Your shot
I
didn't last long
understand.
That's not the point.
I understand what you're saying. I do.
No, Matt, you can't
Matt,
understand
you're
what I'm
trying-
saying
Matt,
and
you're
still
trying to
argue
split
the point.
hairs about
You are.
this,
Yeah,
Matt.
You're right.
seriously.
Matt, look
Just-
at this,
just-
Matt.
you're
Hear me
wrong.
out.
You're
Ridiculous.
100%
No, it's not
wrong.
ridiculous.
100% wrong.
Hear me on this, Matt. Okay, this is an analogy. It's not the same thing, but hear me
Yeah.
out. Okay, so as far as I understand it, you're saying, and even forget about the government at this point. You work for a private company.
Right.
Your boss wants everybody who works for him to be vaccinated.
Right.
You're not forced to be vaccinated,
Right.
right? Because he's just saying, if you don't want to be vaccinated, though, you don't work here,
Right.
and that is your choice. You can leave your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How is that different from like a Harvey Weinstein situation where he goes, you can work for me, if you have sex with me. If you don't, you just don't work for me.
Again, I am not.
No,
saying,
Matt. Explain to me how that's different. Because
It
because
isn't.
they're
It
because
isn't
that
different.
person is
That's
being
not the
coerced.
argument I'm making.
So
it is
so
different.
hold on, Matt. Okay, how is it different?
It's not. I'm saying it's not different. There is not a difference.
Okay,
there.
so
That's
then
not the
so then
argument
none
I'm
of those
making.
people have any right to
That's
say
not-
they were coerced into sex.
That's not the argument that I'm making. No.
But
you
Matt,
have a right
you
to say
have
you
to-
were coerced into getting vaccinated, forced. You had the option. The
Okay,
same,
so you're playing a semantic
the
game.
same way that again, it was just a discllaimer. I don't know how this spun
you
off
don't
into an
need to-
argument.
there's
It
no
was
disclaimer.
just a disclaimer to say
Because you're being semantic
to say-
about what
no,
forced means.
because
This is the
Coerced
most you've
because
got, Matt, to
if-
talk.
Coerced
if you
is
want,
synonymous
no,
with forced.
If you wanted, if like in places in which it is completely illegal, if you want to get an abortion, you literally cannot. No matter what you do, no matter what
State lines.
what it does. No. Assuming that you're not going again. If it were a federal, ban,
Matt,
I'm
I
saying.
just want to say that I was never comparing the legality of
That's
these
why
two
I said
things.
it
I was
was
saying
just,
the
that's why,
people,
That's why I said again. It was just a
the
disclaimer
people
to say
who
you
want,
aren't
the people
forced.
who are pro-choice,
That's why it was just supposed to be a one
are generally
thing. And I was just saying
pro-vaccine,
that.
which
I
are
know.
opposite problems.
I'm saying
Exactly.
that's what,
You're
that's
on
what I'm
two
saying.
sides of the same
It
fence.
was
Exactly.
just that's why I said I was like just as a blanket statement. You were never forced.
Look, they
that
can't
was it.
cancel
I was
us.
ready to move
They
on.
can't
from
cancel us.
there.
Nobody listens.
You were forced to do
I
it.
was
so
ready to move on.
By
from there.
politics.
You absolutely were not
you were
forced. That's
forced
just
to do it,
factually
man.
incorrect.
You were forced to do it.
You weren't.
You
You,
were
were
forced to do it.
not. You weren't the same way people Harvey Weinstein. They weren't.
So when
forced.
do you
They could
become
have given
forced
up
to
their
do it?
career.
At what point did you
When
are you
liter-
forced to
when
do anything?
literally by law you have to or have to not do something.
Okay.
Not you lose a lot. Not your
Okay.
life gets derailed. If not, that you literally
All right.
cannot do something.
Yeah, but come
All right,
on.
all right.
I don't like that. Yeah, okay, you have a choice in everything.
Eh,
But if the choice
Right,
is a
but
bad one, you're
abortion-
never going to
abortion-
choose it.
Abortion,
Who's
going to
go out of work
You do not have a
when
choice.
you know you can't get a job?
It's not.
What do you mean abortion is a choice?
If it was
He's saying if
federally
it's illegal,
banned,
you can't get it.
you
in
do not
wherever.
have a choice.
There's always
anymore. You
someone.
had a choice with the vaccine, right?
You still have a choice.
I'm
Matt.
not saying
you still have a choice. Don't get pregnant.
that's.
Don't get
Ooh.
pregnant.
Look, we're gonna get.
I
We don't
mean,
even
now
have to
you
do the
wanna
whole
go,
abortion
You want to
thing.
go down
Like-
that path.
That-
You do have a choice. Don't get
It's
pregnant.
not.
That's true.
But
Don't get pregnant. Put rape aside, fine, because there should be exceptions for rape. There should be
Absolutely.
exceptions for, if the mother is at risk. Put the exceptions aside. These people who are getting pregnant knowing that I could just run and have an abortion, if you think that they're being forced to not have it, then don't
But
get pregnant.
that's such an
Don't get
anecdotal.
pregnant.
thing.
I have a-
It's not
I
This
have-
wasn't even an
anecdotal,
abortion
Matt.
thing.
Wait,
it was
I-
a, it was
Sit-
a relating.
People
Since you guys
are-
brought up abortion, I have a question. Someone said, and I have no opinion either way.
Wait,
you know.
wait. We're way off the rails.
I just
Yeah,
want to
I
ask
know.
this
And
one
we're over
question. You
time,
can
too.
move on, and then you can end this, and we can continue on
All right.
podcast too. I heard someone say once, obviously, abortion, if it's legal, there's no crime, right? You're not doing anything illegal.
Right.
But now, if a woman was pregnant and you killed her, you're charged with double homicide.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm.
Correct.
How is that a thing
Two
then?
lives.
Well, because the real truth that, I mean, that nobody on the left particularly will admit because they can't because it would mess up their whole thing,
Right.
is that it only matters what the mom thinks of the baby.
Right.
My point being, I have a friend, still my friend, who is like very and like I said, I'm pro-choice from that I can't make a rule for other people. Like it's just a general, you know what I mean? I don't agree with it as an act, but like,
Right,
I'm not gonna hate on anybody for doing it. It's
do
very
you
hard. Like it's incredibly difficult decision to make. You know, I don't think
Yeah.
that people really are just like using it as birth control.
agree, yeah.
I just don't think so. Whatever, right? That being said, I had this whole argument with one of my friends, and who's a woman, girl, whatever, woman, and
Hopefully.
and they were like super pro, and they're to the point where they're like, it's not even a baby, it's a fetus, the whole thing, right? And I'm like, but you don't believe that because if your friend who was pregnant lost her child, and they were sad, you wouldn't say, "What are you talking? Get over it. It's a
ano-
parasite."
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great point.
Exactly.
You would never say that, and they're like, "Well, of course I wouldn't say it. That'd be mean." But I'm like, "But what do you believe about the baby?"
Right.
Because like, it's not about how you would act. I can understand you'd lie and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that," but I'm like, if your friend lost their baby, you would be sad.
Right.
100%.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what is the? You're either lying to yourself.
I agree. The argument.
You know,
the
like
argument
I'm like,
has to
it's
be,
a baby. If you want to get rid of the baby, accept that.
But
That you're
accept
killing.
that what you're
Accept
doing. You're killing
that
the
you're
baby,
killing
right?
a
The ar-
baby. Don't act like it's not a real thing
Right.
until you
Yeah.
decide it is.
Right.
The
That
argument-
doesn't make sense.
the
That's
argument
insane.
true.
is and always has to be like, is this something that you like want to take away from people from doing, or like
Can the father get an option in this though nowadays? Because if
No.
a woman doesn't want a child, she can kill it.
No,
But
you
if the
can't walk
father
away.
doesn't
You still
want,
gotta
he still
pay
has to
child
pay a
support.
child support.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's
Crazy.
downwind of once the whole abortion thing gets
Yeah,
like settled,
exactly,
settled,
it's-
then that'll come up.
Yeah,
but
that-
at this
that's-
point, I
yeah,
think it's
the
too.
abortion,
But I agree.
The abortion issue is front, but that just goes back to now the argument's going to become, oh, if you don't want to pay child support, just don't get someone pregnant, right? That's gonna,
Well, only if
And
abortion's
then if you
illegal.
don't-
Gonna be
if you
true.
don't wanna
Only if
have
abortion's
abortion,
illegal.
There is
And
some
so
truth
that's
to
gonna
that.
be-
There is some
That is
truth.
true.
Just
That-
be
there is.
careful. You know what I mean?
That's where that conversation is going to end up going. But of course, they're going to have to sort out the
Yeah.
abortion thing first
Well,
before
that's
the father even comes into the
More
the
things for
picture.
our politics.
We were trying to keep these things to 30 minutes.
Yeah,
went-
we're
It's
a
our
little-
first
we're a
one.
little-
We have a lot to
We
say.
went off the
Yeah,
rails.
yeah,
We're a
yeah.
little bit, yeah,
We
we
did go
definitely
off
did
the
not talk
rails.
about the debate at all.
Yeah.
We'll come
Nah.
back in with
No.
the second
the campaigns
episode.
either.
Yeah, we'll dial it in.
Episode
we'll-
number 2. We were just anxious to speak.
We'll try and focus back in on the campaign and the debates. You know, it all leads to, I don't know, I think the majority of us believe, well, I think we all believe that we're being lied to
No,
Lied.
definitely.
on both sides.
Yeah, up and down both
And
sides.
Yeah.
there's just
Media.
there's a lot of unfairness in the media, and it's really, I think it's one of the main drivers to
Yeah.
really bringing the country down, in my opinion.
We don't care if you're
Keeping us divided.
we don't
I
care if
agree.
you're red or
I
blue.
agree with you 100%.
Wait, does
about
red and
keeping
blue
you
make a
divided.
color?
Purple.
Purple.
Why can't we all just be purple? Holy shit, I'm
I don't know.
Solved another problem.
Color of royalty,
Ow,
they'd
way
never
to
let
go.
us.
Way
Yeah,
to go,
definitely
Elvis.
not.
Powers
All
that
right,
be.
well,
All right, well, thanks for listening. And
Oh, this is gonna be tough.
as always,
Stay angry, annoyed, and amused.
And amused.